What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse.
Has anyone forced, threatened, promised, or coerced you in any way to enter into this guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
It is.
How do you plead to aiding and abetting false statements in writings and under accusation 23 SC 190514?
Guilty.
Former Trump campaign lawyer Jenna Ellis is the fourth defendant to plead guilty in the Georgia election interference case. Ellis delivered a statement through tears disavowing her involvement in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election.
If this case had gone to trial, the state would have shown the following. On December 3rd of 2020, the defendant did appear before a meeting of a Georgia Senate Judiciary Subcommittee in Fulton County, Georgia, with co-defendants William Rudolph Lewis Giuliani, Ray Sterling Smith III, and other individuals associated with Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated, also known as the Trump Campaign. During the subcommittee meeting, Giuliani and Smith, acting as attorneys for the Trump campaign, made the following false statements. One, that at least 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia, despite there being no record of those ballots having been returned to a county election office. Two, that 2,506 felons voted illegally in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Three, that 66,248 underage people illegally registered to vote before their 17th birthday prior to the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Four, that at least 2,423 people voted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia who were not listed as registered to vote. The false statements were within the jurisdiction of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, who were each conducting investigations into allegations of fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Once completed, these and others investigations affirmatively determined that there was no widespread fraud that could have affected the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. The false statements were made with reckless disregard of the truth and with conspicuous purpose to avoid learning the truth.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia. Thank you.
On the sole count of aiding and abetting false statements and writings, the sentence would be 5 years probation. You're to pay a $5,000 fine to the Georgia Secretary of State's office within 30 days of the entry of the final disposition in this case. You're to complete 100 hours of community service. You are to cooperate with the state and testify truthfully in any further legal proceedings in this case. And you're not to have any contact, either personally or through other agents, with the media or any co-defendants or witnesses, I believe, in this case, as was outlined.
Last week, Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesbro pled guilty for their roles in the election interference case. All three have agreed to work with prosecutors and testify at future trials.
Mr. Chesbro, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please lower your hand and state your true and correct legal name.
Kenneth John Chesbro.
And are you the Kenneth John Chesbro named in the indictment 23 SC 188947?
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything for you to enter into this guilty plea?
No.
It is your decision to waive these rights and enter into this guilty plea because you are in fact guilty.
Yes.
How do you plead to count 15, conspiracy to commit filing false documents in indictment number 23 SC 188947?
Guilty.
And do you understand also special conditions of the probation is that you complete 100 hours of community service
Yes.
and that you write an apology letter to the citizens of the state of Georgia?
Which I have, yes.
Yes, and that you truthfully testify at all hearings and trials involving co-defendants in this matter, that you have no communication with co-defendants, witnesses, or the media until all cases have been resolved against all co-defendants.
Yes.
Ms. Powell, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this matter currently before the court shall be the truth and the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state your true and correct legal name?
Sydney Catherine Powell.
And are you the Sydney Catherine Powell named in accusation 23 SC 190370?
I am.
How do you plead to the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties?
Guilty.
Do you understand that the state is asking that a $6,000 fine be imposed, a restitution of $2,700 be paid to the state of Georgia, an apology letter be written to the citizens of the state of Georgia, that you truthfully testify at all hearings and proceedings and trials involving the co-defendants in this matter, and that you have no communication with co-defendants, media, or witnesses until this case has been completely closed against all defendants?
I do.